Copyright strike. Welcome to Fantasy News Episode 2, where we go in and dive into all kinds of fantasy news from across the fantasy spectrum. And I briefly mentioned in the last edition of Fantasy News that there are a lot of TV show adaptations or just fantasy adaptations in general coming down the line. And what I wanted to do for this episode was go over all of them, because even though I listed 6, I barely got half of what we are actually due. Oh my god. So in this episode, we're going to go ahead and dive on in. I'm going to tell you who is making them, if we know so far, and my prediction for the quality of them on a scale of Angela from The Office to Sam and Frodo's bromance in Lord of the Rings being the best. Guy love, that's all it is. Guy love. That's the scale. Let's go ahead and jump on in. And I also have some follow-up to the controversy of the first episode of Fantasy News, because I need to address it again, apparently. First up, we have the adaptation I really should have mentioned, because I actually have started really to dig the series and the world, and I'll probably be making content about it soon on my channel, and that is we are getting an Avatar: The Last Airbender adaptation. I'm not going to do another take, we're sticking with that, coming to Netflix. Now, the first adaptation of this series was doo-doo. I'm hoping this one's going to be a lot better, and the reason I have hope is because M. Night Shyamalan is not involved, and the original creators of the show are going to be coming in. I assume they will actually be casting Asians, which will be great, and it's probably going to be fairly true to the source material if you're bringing in the actual original runners. Me personally, I don't see why Avatar needs to be adapted to live action. I love it for the animated little thing it is, and I think it's great. I don't necessarily think this one has to happen, but I do respect that these people are doing it, and I actually will give this a solid Jim from The Office out of 10 in terms of potential. I think it's really good. I think it's pretty good potential there. I like it. I think we're going to see something at least good. I think the lowest expectation I have is that it'll be good. Next up, as I mentioned, Chronicles of Narnia is coming to the screen with another live adaptation, and this again will be handled by Netflix. Interesting point though, I could not confirm anywhere if this will be live action or animated or what. Not that there's really any other options for Netflix, but I can't distinguish between the two. It just says Netflix is working on it. Personally, I think this would actually be really cool to see in animation form, something like the Final Fantasy movie style animation, even though, better than that. But you know what I'm saying? Don't go like Family Guy, don't go like anime. Do something a little more 3D, something a little more visually stunning, because Chronicles of Narnia has some very visually stunning things to it that could probably be done incredibly well with animation. That being said, in terms of my predictions for overall quality of Chronicles of Narnia here, I'm coming in low. I'm not super feeling it. Again, I think the fan base was left with such a foul taste in their mouth from the way the movie series ended, and the fact that it's coming in with Netflix, who have been very hot or cold when it comes to their adaptations and their shows and all that. I'm not super hopeful. I'm gonna give it a stepping in a wet puddle in the morning when you just put on your new socks out of 10. My expectations are that low. I don't see people being hyped for it, and I see Netflix putting way more time and effort into the hot, sexy Avatar show that would probably get way more attention right up front. Next up, we have Lord of the Rings, and as everyone and their mother needed to point out to me last time, and by that I mean one guy, it is not Lord of the Rings, it's a Middle-earth prequel. I'm aware of that. I just wanted to put Lord of the Rings and say Lord of the Rings because it's, it gets more people's attention, I guess, and I'm in this for the views. I'm a whore. And I gotta say, this one I'm feeling very middle about. I'm not sure. It could be really great or it could be poor. I don't think it'll be bad. It'll never be like the original Witcher TV adaptation bad. My God, that was an insult to the source material. I don't know how you can screw something up that bad. I can't really place my thumb on how this will be done because either Amazon will be throwing all the monies at it and money will just buy it quality. Will that quality be enough to overtake the level of skepticism Tolkien fans have about Middle-earth stuff happening that's not written by Tolkien? They're some of the biggest purists in fantasy. If it's not Tolkien and it involves Falls, Middle-earth, they get mad about it. I mean, the Shadow of Mordor games were great and had a decent story to them, but a lot of Tolkien fans just hated that that was being done because it's not Tolkien in Middle-earth. So I don't know, and I'm skeptical. I don't think this will be quite the goldmine Amazon thinks it'll be, and for I think their potential goldmine, we have the Wheel of Time show. Now, the Wheel of Time show, I've talked about enough. You guys know my predictions. I think the showrunner Rafe is doing a great job. I think it's going to be wonderful. I don't want to spend a lot of time talking about that because I have spent so much time on my channel talking about this, and I will continue to. But overall, for Lord of the Rings, I'm feeling a broad spectrum out of 10. And for the Wheel of Time adaptation, I'm feeling Daniel Craig's stunning blue eyes out of 10. God damn, his eyes are blue. Next up, we have the Game of Thrones prequel, which is coming down the chimney, and this will be great. I'm just thinking it's of course in HBO's hands. They're probably going to do the exact same treatment they've done for the actual Game of Thrones books. Great. Wonderful. A Song of Ice and Fire books. Sorry, I know someone's going to be mad at me about that already. Awesome. And I just predict it'll be not quite as good as the original Game of Thrones show, but close enough to garner all the attention, make loads of money, and be wonderful. I'm going to go ahead and give that the appeal of a whiteboard that's never been written on, so it's like super clean, and when you write on it, there's like no of that like shadow marker that's left from like when people erase but not well enough. It's just a perfectly clean, satisfying whiteboard to write on. That's the quality I'm predicting for the Game of Thrones show. Next up, we have the Dresden Files, which some stuff was posted online about this being possible with no networks attached, just like it might be happening. And then the creator responded and said like, haha, don't believe everything you read online. So now that's apparently my Jim Butcher impression, which is my impression for everybody and everything. So my prediction is that this is not actually in the works, or he's just trying to cover his butt because it's too early on for anything to be guaranteed by a long shot. But for my Dresden Files fans, which, hey, how you doing? I'm starting another Dresden Files book very soon. I'm gonna say that this one is not likely to even happen anytime in the near future, but if it was done well, I can't even make a prediction. Like, there's no studio, there's no nothing. I don't know what to say about this one, except that Dresden Files certainly has really great potential to be a show more like Band of Brothers than Game of Thrones. I think a mini-series would be phenomenal for Dresden Files. So that's my out of 10 rating for it. A mini-series out of 10. Sure. Up next! So the Kingkiller Chronicles adaptation is kind of mysterious, and I can't really find much solid information about it, except for some reason Lin-Manuel Miranda is attached. I like that guy a lot. That's neat. But what I'm seeing is it's most likely going to be a movie trilogy, and if any adaptation of Kingkiller was going to happen, that's probably the way to go. And Lin-Manuel Miranda is a phenomenal person to be having working on the music for that. I hope the movies get all the funding they need, and we get something really spectacular, because of all the negative things I've said about Kingkiller, with just a few tiny adjustments and putting it to the screen, I think you could make probably one of the best fantasy adaptations ever done, and I'm actually really excited to see that, and I hope the best for it. So I'm going to give the Kingkiller Chronicles adaptation how well I think it'll do out of 10. That's my hope. And now we have His Dark Materials, which seems to be a joint effort between BBC and HBO. And again, this has some of the same problems that I mentioned Chronicles of Narnia having, where there's not a ton of love for the fan base for the last adaptation. Though I will say, the His Dark Materials movie wasn't bad. I actually thought Golden Compass was okay. And it's never been done. It's never been completed. And in the hands of something like HBO, which has already proven they can do fantasy right, and BBC, which has proven they can do adaptations very well across the board, and they've handled great lawn projects before, I'm actually way more hopeful about this His Dark Materials adaptation. I will give it I want a demon. Please, for the love of God, give me a little demon companion. That would be incredible. Out of 10. I'd love that shit. I also discovered in my diggings through here that Dune looks like it's going to be made into a movie. That's not necessarily sci-fi. It's like sci-fantasy. It's sci-fi with like fantasy elements, and I don't know, it's hard, it qualifies, even though it's being made into a movie. This is supposed to be about shows. And all I can find is that it's in development, and God, you guys know how I feel about Dune. I don't love it. I think it's really overhyped, and I don't think a movie adaptation would really do it justice, because Dune's strongest assets are the immense scape of the world, and I think a show would be better at establishing that. Movies have a hard time, especially if it's just a one-off, one movie, building an incredible size scope world. The best example of this being done in a movie is Fellowship of the Ring, which managed to do it quite well, but really it took the whole trilogy to build Middle-earth as well as it was for that adaptation. And I just don't see Dune being built super well in one movie. I didn't love it. I think it's not that interesting. There's too much going on, too much confusing crap for your average movie-going audience to get, and it would have to be like a 3-hour movie. So I'm not feeling it. I'm feeling a DC Cinematic Universe out of 10 for that, and that's the lowest score anything's gotten so far. There's also talks of Conan being brought back. It's being shopped around, and I predict it will not even be picked up. Nothing I found online says any studio has agreed to be with it. In fact, some have passed, and Conan is just so out from what the current trends are, what people are currently really into. It's not going to appeal to anywhere near enough people. I think they're going to acknowledge that, and they're either going to change it from its source material so drastically it's not even recognizable, which you pretty much have to do at this point to make Conan appealing to the mass audiences, or it won't be done. I'm feeling Bigfoot out of 10 for Conan, meaning it's not real and no one's going to find it. And I want to end this one on the Cosmere adaptations that's rumored. We see Brandon has recently the TV talk has died out quite a bit. The writers who are kind of affiliated have not been mentioned since that one article. Maybe that was just fake news, in which case I'm sorry I reported fake news to you guys. And now we're just seeing Brandon bring up the possibility of video games, which I'm super hyped for. If you want to see me get back into gaming, bring the Cosmere to the smaller screen, not the small screen, the smaller, because I'm playing on a PC monitor, which is pretty small. But you know what I mean? I think that'd be really awesome, and I'd be totally down to see, especially like Mistborn and Stormlight, holy crap, yes, brought to the video game world. That would be incredible. I can't wait for the day where I could download a Cosmere title on Steam. Awesome. The only thing I found fairly interesting about this, and I don't want to make accusations, this is purely speculation. Brandon did this right after the lawsuit from the Witcher author was brought up against CD Projekt, whatever it is that made the Witcher games. I'm going to speculate, this is entirely speculation, it's almost a response to that lawsuit and saying, look, you guys did amazing work, I'd love you to adapt my books. Because not only is that author pulling off a bit of an asshole move, Brandon seems like the kind of guy, at least from what I've seen from him, where if he saw someone doing something kind of wrong like that, he'd be like, you know what, how about you guys adapt my books, because they're dope, I'd love to be elevated like you guys elevated the Witcher books, and if he's not grateful, I will be grateful to you. That's my speculation. That's my, if this was like a hip-hop rap beef, what is going on? And I think it's pretty interesting, and I think that Cosmere, just hear me out, has more potential for an actual video game adaptation than The Witcher did, because while The Witcher games are incredible, the mechanics for Cosmere to be a video game in terms of the magic systems and the combat and the epic scale of it fit better into a current video game style world than the more toned down Witcher books do. And again, I love the Witcher books, and I honestly think the Witcher books are higher quality than any books that have come out of Cosmere in terms of overall execution. But I just think Cosmere books have a broader appeal for video game adaptation. Of course, and this brings me to my response for the stuff that I got backlash for in my first episode of Fantasy News, because apparently a lot of people did not watch my response video or did not agree with what I said, or just kept bringing up the fact that there is a law in Poland that if basically a creator signs over the rights of his property to another company and that company makes a ton of money, like what happened with the Witcher games, that author can then turn around and use this law to essentially sue for more money. And okay, that law exists. That does not mean I agree with it. And I was giving my opinion on what the Witcher author was doing, and yeah, I don't agree with what he's doing at all. I think it's morally pretty wrong. If someone offered you a percentage, you said no, and then they turn around and they make a lot of money and you miss out on that percentage, your loss. Too bad. Especially since you demand money up front, turn around and then say, in his words, which I mentioned in the response video, your game's probably gonna suck, pay me now, I have no faith in you. That's a pretty harsh thing to do, and so no, I don't feel bad for him. And the claim they only had the rights to make one game and then they made 3, I find again to be very suspect, because why didn't he sue them when the second game came out, or right away when the third game was even announced? Why did it take this long? Probably because the guy wants money and it took him this long to realize, oh, I can sue, rather than there being a problem in the contract, which he would have known he could sue from right away. There's just a lot of things I found suspect. I read his whole claim and it seemed full of holes to me. I will go ahead and link that claim down below because someone linked it in the Discord server. I appreciate you doing that. I'll bring that link on over. Again, I find his claim to be highly suspect. The game creators elevated his series and he made a ton of money inadvertently from them making his books more popular. Just be grateful for that, dude. You've made a ton of money for what these artists did to enhance your series. Why don't you just be grateful? Why are you trying to take money away even though it's your fault you turned down their offer? That's my take on it. You're more than welcome to disagree with me. This is an opinion news show. Consider it that. I'm like the Alex Jones of fantasy. Please, dear God, no, I do not want to be that. That's my biggest fear. They're turning the orcs gay. Anyway, guys, that's my fantasy news episode 2, the much less funny, more factual one, because I'm low energy and stressed out. Let me know if you like this one. Comment down below, which adaptation are you most excited to see? Because obviously for me, number 1 is Wheel of Time, but quite frankly, number 2 for me is going to be Avatar: The Last Airbender. I'm majorly anticipating that and would love to see what they could do with that. That's just me, y'all. Hope you guys enjoyed this video. Like and subscribe if you've not already. Link me some other news stories down below if you'd like me to cover them, or shoot them over in the Discord server. We have a whole channel devoted to that now. Have a good one, y'all. Peace. Special shout out to Leighton White. Appreciate you, dude.